everything that I know. Says I gotta go, tired of going solo. But I'm never gonna go there again. This is what it is, this is who I am. This is where I finally take my stand. I didn't want to fall, but I don't have to grow. I'm not the one with two star hands. Giving him the best of everything that's left of the life inside this man. I've been born again.
Yes, we've been born again. This is Eddie Huff, and you're listening to and watching, possibly, Fresh Black Coffee.
On Facebook, baby.
And Podbean.
Yes.
And numerous other venues.
Yes.
So we're getting out there, people. We're getting our reach out. We've got a special guest today and servant. As you saw, he was serving us water. In a minute, I might send him out for some more things. I will introduce our special guest later. It's a real pleasure, and I'll tell the whole story of how we met and what's going on there. But let's start with some fun and frivolity, as we tend to do.
Yes.
Of course, our favorite rag, the Babylon Bee.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to read these articles. You'll just have to go get them yourself. You'll just have to look at these articles yourself and then read them. One that struck me last night, I thought it was really good, on the Babylon Bee. Worship leader is struck dead for lying after claiming we're only going to sing the bridge just one more time. So, don't you? One more. Okay. You have to be born again, as we say, or bored again in church to know what we're speaking of. But anybody that's been in a worship service knows exactly what we're talking about. Yes. And the Babylon Bee nails it right there. That's a good one. Okay, next one. Thousands come to worship at a miraculous mask stain that looks just like Dr. Fauci.
Yeah.
This is one of my favorites right here. Gavin Newsom is named U-Haul Salesman of the Year.
Yeah. He wasn't even trying.
He did more for U-Haul than anybody else. Yeah. Okay. And finally. Actually, I think that's it. The next one, I had it under there, but it's a different.
Akin to that first one, I had a pastor for a while that could preach a great 15-minute sermon.
For about an hour.
But it took him 45 minutes to preach.
Oh, Evan could relate probably to these, like the guys that says, I'm about to wrap up with this. Oh, those are the famous last words, Let me wrap up with this. Yeah, exactly. One last thing. Yeah. And then it's kind of like me, Dave.
Yeah.
And like, I just have one more thing. And then, and on and on and on.
To another one.
Exactly. So I can kind of relate, especially if you get me in a church. If you get me in church and I do a teaching.
Oh, yeah. Nuggets.
Yeah, turn your watches off.
Layers.
No, I try layers. Yeah, it's one of my layers, one of the bad layers. Hey, by the way, January 6th, protest today in Washington, D.C. But this is a reverse protest. This is protesting the political prisoners that were arrested after January 6th and are not being given a hearing. Nothing's being scheduled. Their rights have been violated and everything. It's crazy. I mean, it's like, where are we living?
Yeah.
Where are we living? Here's what's funny, though. Here's how the different periodicals cover it. And one says, Capitol insurrection protest live. Washington prepares for the arrival of a crowd supporting January 6th rioters.
Yeah.
That's the one. Yeah. Right. Exactly. And then the other one says, Trump says his heart is with persecuted January 6th rioters at Washington, D.C., as Washington, D.C. braces for a protest in support of political prisoners. Yep. I mean, these are two totally opposite views of the same event.
Yep.
And it's sad. I mean, it's sad, especially considering the treason that we witnessed that came to light this week about General Milley, which you're going to talk about in a little bit. Let's hold on for that for a minute. Another thing that we may get into here, I'd like to discuss more. It's a new word.
Oh.
First, hydroxychloroquine was the thing, right? Mm-hmm. And then what? Over the last month, it's been what?
Ivermectin.
Ivermectin.
Yes.
The horse med.
Yes.
The horse dewormer.
Yes.
That people are taking and being cured through ivermectin. But there's a new one.
What?
Have you heard of monoclonal antibodies?
I've heard it talked about. But
Well, get ready, because last night, it's all I heard. Monoclonal antibodies.
Yeah.
And apparently, last night, it came out that Florida is suing the Biden administration because what Biden has done, the federal government bought 1.2 million, I believe, 1.2 or 1.6 million doses of this.
Yeah.
But they're not giving it to Florida and Texas.
They're rationing.
They're rationing, and they're not in. For some reason, Texas and Florida are not in the ration.
Right.
Why? Because the governors are probably Oklahoma's on there, but we're too small to be mentioned in the deal. Yeah. So he is pulling that. So now here's what I say to all the people that I argue with on the Tulsa World Facebook page and Channel 6 Facebook page every week. If Oklahoma is in such crisis with all of these hospitalized people and all these people in need, then why would the federal government not allow our state to have monoclonal antibodies if they work? Apparently these work. I think President Trump, it's one of the treatments that he had. He had Regeneron. Yes. He had the monoclonal antibodies. That's the first time anybody ever heard of these things, but it was kept low, and now all of a sudden it's out. And I'm still convinced, everybody, that the main reason that a lot of this is happening is because the government has been supporting the drug manufacturers.
Sure.
That's why they suppressed J&J and have been pushing Moderna and Pfizer. I get it. If somebody looked at the contribution, the vaccines.
Right.
If
Plus,
someone,
there's remdesivir, which is a treatment.
If someone checked the stocks and who's invested in Moderna and Pfizer, we might find something. See, the problem is, for some reason, Congress can keep a secret where their investments are.
Yeah.
Yet Biden is wanting the banks now to tell them how much money we have in the bank.
Yeah.
So they can tax it.
Crooked.
Oh, it's a shame. Honestly, people, if you're not fed up yet, God help you. Seriously, God help you, because we're in deep doo-doo, as they say. So, David, before we get to our guest here today, why don't you give us a little recap of what your week was like? What did you have going on this week?
Monday morning, I started out at the Capitol as an interim study. Those who know me and followed these issues, serious mental illness is something that has impacted my loved ones. It's impacted several others, even has impacted Ross Perot when he referred to the crazy aunt lives in the basement and nobody wants to talk about, right? So we all have that. But the problem in Oklahoma is, whereas we used to have thousands of bed capacity at mental health hospitals, state hospitals, Veneta, at one time at 2,600 beds, we shut it down completely. We had two others that we've shut down, and now we have one left out of the four that were in our state constitution, and it's called Griffin. It's in Norman, and now the Department of Mental Health has shut down a majority of it and rented it out to corporate contractors. Why is this important? Because when you have a psychotic break, or a loved one of yours does, and it requires law enforcement interaction, you're likely to end up in the jail with psychosis. And so I had two sheriffs down there. I had Judge Kirsten Pace, who is our mental health court special judge in the Tulsa district. And the legislature was fantastic. Their questions, the Department of Public Safety is there. And so I'm going to be working with a bipartisan group of lawmakers coming up with legislation to restore our state response. Because, those in Tulsa have followed Elliott Williams, which the family there, and it was horrendous, and heinous deaths occurring, and sheriffs who are woefully unprepared, unqualified, and unstaffed to really take care of this. So that's what my week was like, and stay tuned. We're going to be following this for months.
That's good. Speaking of Elliott Williams, his parents used to be insurance clients of mine, and I remember his dad calling me one day, just begging for help. Did I know anybody in the legislature that could help with their son? Because apparently he was in the middle of the street.
Yeah.
They're from Owasso. And he was in the middle of the street causing a ruckus. He was attacking cars, just scaring people, driving.
Yeah. Sure, having a meltdown.
And the police came and they put him in jail. This was years before he died in jail. Yeah. And they told him there's nothing. He says, is there not some help? Is there not some place they can take him? And they said there's no such place any longer. In the end, he ended up in jail. And tragically, as we know, he died in jail, and I believe there's a big lawsuit over that whole.
It was a settlement. $20 million judgment was awarded to his family.
I could say something involving insurance, but I'll move on because this is a serious subject, so I'll leave it alone. No, seriously though, it was a tragic death. In fact, and they had it on video, and you could see it. Evan, you weren't here when that happened, but. It was a tragic thing. They just left him, and they thought he was. I don't know what they thought. But
they thought he was faking a spinal cord injury, which he actually had. And so over 3 days, they let him dehydrate and starve to death while they watched him and didn't intervene. Ooh. How heinous is that?
Yeah.
And now I'm going to say this. Men have a 900% higher likelihood of ending up in jail than women do. We fear men more than we fear women. We've been more, chivalrous, I would say, in making sure women get help to a level that our law enforcement hasn't been doing with men.
Well, and I think we're missing a huge point. It's women that are driving us crazy.
God, yeah. And that's Eddie Huff who said that, folks.
Well, I mean, you think? Is there a possibility? I mean, listen, and I say this in all honesty and sincerity. There are some evil women out there.
Oh, yes.
Okay, there are some evil women that will drive guys crazy. Men's triggers are different from women, and they're easier to manipulate. I mean, there's too many stories of that. There's too many stories of that. Girls get, being in the insurance business, I had somebody call me once, and they had a son and a daughter. And they were both under 21. They wanted to drive. Yeah. The daughter's rates were a bit high. The son's rates were outrageous.
Oh, God.
And he goes, well, why? Why is my son's rate so much higher? I said, because when girls have accidents, they have oopses.
Yeah.
They'll bump into a pole. Yeah. They may scrape something. When guys have an accident, they kill and maim.
Yeah.
I mean, they'll flip a car. My own son flipped a car.
Yeah.
It's a whole different. So what I was going to say, though, men's abuse or crimes against women, they're bad, but they're different. They're not. They're more physical. I'd say the male crimes against women, they're either sexual or physically abusive type crimes, whereas the crimes against men, you can't judge them like that because they're mental. Like women will just do little things, say things, or withhold favors, things like that from men. Yeah. To just drive them nuts, tease them, all these things, and manipulate them. So it's a whole different deal.
And if I could, I'm actually considered one of the experts on this issue.
What aren't you considered an expert on?
Well, I do
marijuana.
I do. Well, on this, CLEAT actually has me involved in crisis intervention training. I train law enforcement officers. I also help set up a program to train detention officers, and we're getting ready to roll that out statewide.
You're a busy man, David.
But here's the thing: if you've had loved ones with these kinds of meltdowns, especially mania and schizophrenia. Yes, that kind of person can push a loved one, somebody close to them, someone who lives with them, over the edge. And it's not uncommon for a husband of a mentally unstable woman to end up in jail on domestic violence charges, whether they're real or actually sometimes not at all.
Exactly. Yeah. Do you remember the case? Here we go, chasing one of our many rabbits that we tend to do. Yeah. We do this every week, and we'll get started on subject, and then I think it was in Nashville, in Tennessee, where there was a pastor, and his wife shot him while he was asleep. She shot him in bed, asleep. I think it was in his back with a shotgun. And when they went to court on it, they found that, well, he had mentally abused her, so it was okay for her to shoot him in the back in bed while he was asleep. And she got off. I mean, it was the weirdest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Clearest example of the two, the difference in the law, the way the law is. It's kind of like, the whole Black Lives Matter argument that black criminals are treated more harshly and more severely and more regularly than white criminals for the same crime. Yeah. The street dope versus the high society dope.
Yeah.
And it seems true. I mean, it's just crazy that women can the molesting of school.
Exactly. I was about to go there.
You're going to go there. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. The teachers.
I wrote a fantastic article on it where I took 12 Oklahoma cases of female teachers who had molested kids, and they had an average sentence of 2.5 years, whereas
which
men,
is commuted probably. They probably only serve half or 3/4.
Yeah, some of them just got nothing more in probation, whereas men average at least 9 years. Average.
Ooh, ouch. Yeah.
Think about it. 2.5 versus that. Yeah, and this is the thing. Men are seen as predators. Women are seen much more sympathetically.
Yeah. We could go down the line, our old abortion argument, how this poor girl, he convinced her to go get an abortion. Well, what if the day after the birth, he convinces her to go kill the baby? Is she still innocent?
Yeah.
That was always my question. Yeah. So, listen, and I'm going to be clear about this. I love women. I think women should be protected.
Yes.
But I think at certain times men need to be protected from women as well.
I can
and especially those of you that have sons out there, okay? Those of you that have sons. I know if you have daughters, you're always worried about your daughters. But man, your sons need to be protected, not just from women, I'm not trying to say it, but from society and from law. Because our whole culture has gotten to where we tend to be looking for ways to oppress men, to persecute men. It's kind of like, white supremacy.
Yeah.
It's the whole. I think it's all under the same thing. It's male supremacy. So you've got this whole movement to tear down the male.
Yeah. I think you're on it.
And it's the patriarchy they always talk about.
Yeah.
And it's one last example, and I'll let you go. But think about. Remember the kid at Florida State the year after Jameis Winston, they had a quarterback who was supposed to be phenomenal. He was going to be this great guy. He's in a bar, which college football players in particular, athletes should just stay out of bars and clubs because they always
Hello,
get trouble.
Baker Mayfield.
Yeah. Well, Joe Mixon was the main one. But this kid in Florida, he's there, and he's by this girl, and all of a sudden this girl, I don't know what happened to start it, but she pushes him, and then she smacks him, and out of reaction, he just, boom, he punches her.
Yep.
One punch. He didn't beat her. He just punched her.
Yep.
He was kicked out of school. His life, his career was over.
Yep.
Because he abused the girl.
Yep.
Joe Mixon.
Yep.
If you saw the video, the girl came, attacked him, pushed him, slapped him, and he punched her.
Yep.
And fortunately for Joe, Bob Stoops in Oklahoma, the state, had enough sense. They did what they had to. They suspended him for a year from football and everything, but he was allowed to come back, and he's been a model citizen ever since.
Yeah.
The poor kid in Florida came after the Jameis Winston thing, where Jameis had been accused of rape and all this, and the school didn't do anything. So now this poor guy, he was the punished.
Yeah.
But I always say we have to make up our minds, Dave.
Yeah.
Are women innocent to be protected, or are they equal?
Yeah,
and
you
should
can't have it both ways.
No, you can't have. But we're trying.
Yeah,
it's almost like the little kid that comes up and punches people and then runs back. Well, he attacked me. And then you go after the big kid. And exactly.
Yeah.
It's not right. And so someone needs to make up their mind. Are women equal? Yeah. Or they be protected. And it's the same people, Nancy Pelosi and them in Congress, and even Republicans have fallen for this, to where every time you turn around, oh, poor woman, poor woman, poor woman. But then at the same time, women are equal to men in every way. They need to be paid the same. They need to be treated the same. They need to be this and this and this the same.
I mean, like the pay gap. I don't think it exists. It's equal.
There's other factors.
It's been
too
abolished
that are
for like I don't know how
Yeah.
how many years back, and
Right.
Yeah.
it just depends on the choice to take.
So
exactly. The choice of
like-
jobs and everything that you do, right?
And if you want to get a baby, I guess that actually puts you maybe, but that's a choice you made.
right,
Right.
Yeah, it's a consistency in the workforce that often is the biggest thing. Is leaving the workforce, starting a family, and things like that is one of the factors that they conveniently leave up.
By the way, let me tell you something about the whole pay deal. This is interesting because I bought a car in 1973. I graduated from college, got my first job, and my parents let me buy my first car. They wouldn't even let me drive there.
yeah.
I'm 22 years old
I
before I ever
resemble that.
got a car, and my parents actually, I don't know if they let me or made me go buy a car, but anyway, so I bought a brand new 1973 Toyota Celica. Second year it was ever released in America.
It
Beautiful.
took
looking.
the nation by storm.
Oh
that
yeah,
model.
it was a canary yellow with a brown vinyl top. Had the stripe. It was a ST.
Yeah.
Celica ST. So I get this thing. How much do you think I paid for it?
2,400.
Well, you're lowballing, but in the 3,600.
Yeah.
But it was on the showroom. They opened the glass, and I actually literally drove the car because it was the only one they had.
Yeah.
I literally drove it out of the showroom, and for like months, I had people. It would be parked and be, "What is that? Where'd you get that car? What is that car?" Because it was like about one of the only ones in town.
Oh, yeah,
So
yeah.
I go out of California a couple of years later, and I come back, 1978.
Oh yeah.
And I'm meeting with a friend of mine, one of the elders at our church, who's the finance guy at this car dealership. And all of a sudden, I noticed a Toyota Celica now was $9,000, and I said, "What happened? How this car it tripled in cost?"
Yeah.
He says, "Well," and I can't remember what year it was, whether it was 76 or no, it must have been 77 or 78. It used to be creditors could only count one income. You choose whichever the higher income in the household was, either the man or the woman, whichever one it was based on that. Well, women complained because it was discriminatory.
Sure.
Why would you not include our income? So what they did, they ended up allowing them to count both incomes. So now, if you were a household with the head of house making $12,000, you could be making $18,000, $20,000, $30,000. Now all of a sudden, your purchasing power is a lot greater. But what happens next?
Inflation. For one.
Inflation. Instantly, the car dealers, the house, the mortgage people
the
said,
70s were
we see
terrible.
gold in them our hills.
Yeah.
And it just shot everything up. That's why prices not only doubled, but tripled in a matter of 5 years.
Yeah. I want to wrap up on one more statement.
Yeah, I'm
on-
sorry, I just totally stole your story, but I
Thread
get these,
hijacking progress. Code 12. But
you know what? Black Lives Matter.
That's
so,
right.
so you can't get me. You can't get me. I'm not guilty.
pulling up the black. Okay, I'll wrap this up, and I guess we're going to go to break. It's this. Yeah. Statistics tell us, actually, the mentally ill are not any more violent than the population as a whole. Now, drugs can add to that and, other things. But we do know that the mentally ill are far more likely and vulnerable to be the victims of violence.
Yeah, that's true.
And we had some Yahoo plumber was driving over homeless in the underpasses a few years ago. Yeah, we saw. It was heinous, but it was that bigotry. And these are people with nothing, and they get ripped off, stolen, beat up, all kinds of things happen. But we know this, and this is a little side on women. Newsmax last night announced that some young college co-ed pretty girl is missing, and now it's national news. When's the last time you saw national news because a 45-year-old man went missing? It doesn't happen, right? Because it's never in the news. It's only pretty girls.
What about so unattractive women can disappear and we don't care?
That's just it. It doesn't sell. It's only when they're pretty that it sells, and then the news just picks up on it, and people get emotionally attached.
I think that goes back to our deal of what they consider rape statutory rape
Yeah.
and teachers and all. If you ever notice, the ones that get off are the really attractive
Oh,
ones.
yeah.
Probably because the judge is envious that it wasn't him.
Well, one gal in Florida.
Oh my.
Yeah, one gal in Florida, and she was a stripper, but in also teaching that was literally her defense that she's too pretty for prison.
And did they buy it?
Yes, they gave her probation.
You gotta be kidding me.
Not kidding you. That was probably 15 years ago.
Anymore.
Oh,
Yeah.
she was a model. She would model with, motorcycles and stuff like that. And that's just it. Yeah, the hotter you are, the more you can get away with.
Yeah, it's now we don't want to stereotype. That's not always the case, but there's a lot of evidence
Yeah.
to support what you're saying. Hey, listen, we're going to take our first break here. When we get back, I want to interview Evan Ramasamy, and we're going to have real fun because it's very interesting, his background. We'll be right back. This is Fresh Black Coffee.
I'm Jeff Davis with Just a Thought. President Biden, 2 words difficult to say with a straight face, promised that no one who makes under $400,000 a year would face an income tax increase. We said at the time of his promise that it was destined to be broken. Now we find out that the huge $3.5 trillion spending plan would most definitely increase taxes on lower and middle income earners. But technically, he can say he didn't break the promise. Congress did. It's a typical political shell game. Also, certain products used universally among all segments of Americans will be taxed at a higher rate. If Americans knew how much they are being nailed with passive taxes, there would be riots in the streets. And that's why they make those taxes invisible. The tired slogan, "Make the rich pay their fair share," is not only a phony demand, they could take every cent of rich Americans, it would not pay for what Washington wants. Also, that $3.5 trillion, it's going to end up being a lot more. Either way, you're going to pay for it. Just a Thought. I'm Jeff Davis. I'm Jeff Davis with Just a Thought.
Can you reset the camera?
Can you hear?
And we are back. Hey, this is Eddie Huff along with my friend sidekick, and I'm more impressed by this guy every week. And we always talk about Donkey, talking about Shrek, and he having layers.
Yeah.
But Dave definitely has layers, layer after layer. By the way, Dave, you know what? In the morning, I'm making waffles.
All right, Belgian waffles.
Now, hey,
I don't know the difference between a Belgian waffle and any other.
Yeah,
it just sells better on the
just
menu.
give me a waffle.
You just get to raise the price on the menu when you say Belgian.
That's right. But today, people, we have a special guest in our little makeshift studio, and his name is Evan Ramasamy. Now, here's what's interesting. My son, one of his best friends growing up, Jenks High School graduate, and he's a doctor here in town, by the way. In fact, one of the foremost neurosurgeons. But his name is Ramasamy. But Evan is Ramasamy. You flip the W and the A around, and you. So Evan and I met at our men's group at the church we attend. He goes to a different campus, but I go to their men's group. In any event, he was standing there, and we just started talking. And man, I was so blown away by his story. But he is an ORU student. For those of you that don't know, it's Oral Roberts University here in Tulsa. But the interesting thing is where he's from. He's from Mauritius, the island of Mauritius in the South Indian Ocean. By the way,
Correct.
It's off the coast of Africa. But what's funny to me is that it's about the size of Broken Arrow.
It is.
It's a very. I was thinking Madagascar, which is the bigger one, and then and Zanzibar is smaller than Madagascar,
Right.
and it's still about 10 times the size of Mauritius.
It is, yeah.
And so, but Evan, just tell us your background. I'll just tell quickly. He's basically East Indian background, but he was born and raised in Mauritius, and then we'll take it from there. So, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, as Mr. Huff said, I'm from Africa, Mauritius, Samoa Island. We're the only African country to have more Indian population. It's kind of funny because to Africans, we don't look African. We're kind of like, what are you guys actually? So, we're African, looks Indian, and speak French. So it's kind of like this.
Oh, it's a French island.
We used to be a French island.
Till
but
you came.
You speak French?
I do. Yeah.
Hey, here's what blows me away. He doesn't even sound foreign. I mean,
I try to blend, actually.
yeah, man, he doesn't even sound so. So you're saying you speak American, you speak English,
I do.
and you speak French.
I do.
Anything else?
I speak my native tongue, which is like a broken French. It's kind of like the Haiti.
Oh, like
So Haitian Creole.
what is it?
Kind of
Pigeon,
Pigeonish, yeah.
Pigeonish,
Yeah.
Pigeonish. Oh man.
So that's what I speak at home. But in school, I had to speak English and French because that's the business language of the economy.
Yeah.
So, but outside of the streets, so like with family, we would speak Creole. So
Creole. Oh, what's you do well down in Louisiana then? Down
I would because it's kind of close. Like I heard a couple Louisiana folks talk like Creole. I was like, I can understand what it says. So it's cool. Yeah,
That's cool. That's actually another language you got.
yeah, you can say that.
Well, it's a French dialect.
It is.
Yeah.
You know, it gets me. Here's an interesting thing, something you just said, that English and French are the business languages. I've spent a lot of time in East Africa, and in particularly Uganda. And I remember walking the halls of this school, and they had on the walls these signs, speak English. Do not speak vernacular. It said they speak English, so we speak English. And it says English is the language of business, so we learn English. And you got idiots in America trying to get people to speak Ebonics. I mean, you know, who are you going to do business with Ebonics unless you're going to deal drugs on the street or something? Oh, hey, man, what's up? What up? What would it be, man? You want a dime bag, nickel? What do you know, I mean, come on. You know, you cannot succeed. Even here in Oklahoma, I think someone was trying to get them to start teaching Cherokee or some native language. Well, yes, it's good for you, but teach it on the tribe, on the reservation. So, and in those homes, like if you're coming from Germany, or like I grew up speaking German, I still speak German, but I didn't have to take German. In fact, I failed German in school. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm cutting into you.
No,
but so go ahead. So you grew up and you were telling us about the language. So how many years did you go to high school, or you have O level and A level? Is that how you guys do it there? Like,
yeah. But I didn't go to O level school. I went to an IB school, International Baccalaureate School. So I was exposed to like the international, or like mostly like the like a foreign presence in school. So I went to a private school back home. It was a blessing.
Is your dad pretty well off to send you to a private?
You can say that, yeah.
Okay. What does he do? What are they in?
He's in the textile industry.
Okay. So that's big. That's big.
It's like one of the main ones at home. Tourism is number one, of course. Fishing is number two, and textile is like the traditional. Like everyone kind of does it. So
how did you end up at Oral Roberts University?
It's a great question because I did not know anything about ORU, and I thought it was a Catholic school for a long time.
Might have been my son that got you there.
Maybe. But I would say that it was a family friend from America that advised us to come here, and I was like, I wanted to like expound my my territory, to go outside and just to learn, and I applied to other schools like Hungary, in Japan, and even to England, but somehow everything just got faster at ORU. Like doors started opening like crazy. I was like, whoa, this is different. A scholarship came in, and it was just to like now I'm 7 years in this college now, so I'm gonna be here for like 7 years. It's kind of like crazy.
Yeah. So now, I assume you applied because you were a Christian.
Yeah.
Were the other schools in Japan and Hungary, were those Christian schools?
No,
those were just regular. And I assume you applied to other universities in America,
Not particularly. I didn't know a lot of schools in America. I wanted to go to the Ivy League school, but I know it was going to be competitive and hard. But I kind of placed all my bet on Oral Roberts. I was like, you know what? What if I get in, I get in. But my main idea was to go outside. And I was really looking into Japan, but
do you speak Japanese?
Somewhat.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow,
I
man,
definitely-
layers, more layers. No, you got so you did your undergrad at Oral Roberts, and now you're in the master's of business, and it's and what is your undergrad is in administration.
Yes.
What is the master's in? Is it still in?
So it's a general master's right now, but I am looking towards data analytics concentration. So I'm trying to be more on the data side of the business aspect of it.
Do you think you'll go back into your family business when you get done, or what are your goals afterwards?
Maybe I don't know. I'm open to see what happens next. I would love to go back and help, but at the same time, I think I'm not done learning yet. And if I would go back, I would want to bring changes not only to my family but to like the rest of the economy, to be a benefit to them. So
Really? So you see needs that they have there?
oh
too.
yes, definitely. There are multiple needs, and Africa is kind of like it's like a gold mine for needs. Like you can find a problem to everything.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I mean, maybe you could go to Uganda and straighten them out. I mean, now let me ask you a question. It's probably not so much of a problem there. I've noticed in East Africa, Tanzania, Uganda, Kenya, and I've heard the same thing is happening in South America, that the Chinese are taking over
Oh,
those.
yes.
Are they coming onto your island as well?
Oh, they already started a long time ago. Well, our island has some really good raw materials that we don't have the facilities to do it. So Americans came earlier and kind of started helping us with it. But in the past 10 years, the Indians and the Chinese have been fighting over it. So the best way to do it is to give us foreign loans or help us with like infrastructure, or like help us to develop our economies. And India and China has been really like consistent, but China really pressing in real bad. Like, so they redid our whole roads at home. They built a metro system. They helped us to improve our like a seafood hubs. So just to allow us to be efficient at fishing and like have partnership with them. Like our commerce is very friendly to China, so we have a lot of people that go back and forth to China. So they've done a lot so that they can get something in return. And it's something common in Africa. They have bought cities or land, and if you look, Africa is in red.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
It pretty belongs to China.
Yeah, and South
terms
America said that. You know, it's funny because I experienced this when I went to Uganda the last time I was there in 2018, and I was talking to the people, and it reminded me, people who remember South Africa and how the ANC, the African National Congress, which was communist basically, and I read the story of Nelson Mandela and so many of the people there. What drove them to the ANC was that they reached out to Europe and America, and they wouldn't help them. The Russians came in back in that time and started helping all of these people, all of the countries, and therefore against the apartheid and the oppression from the Europeans, and therefore the people obviously gravitated. What is it? The friend of my friend is my friend, you know, that type of thing, and the enemy of my friend is my friend. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I meant. The enemy of my friend is my friend. So, so America really missed out. I think we really missed out on some of the things we did. We're friendly with India, with the call centers, the Philippines, some of those countries. But if you want to talk about a low-cost, high-skilled labor force, oh my goodness, East Africa, West Africa, Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania,
It's perfect, yeah.
perfect. And the Chinese, they saw it.
They saw it coming.
They saw it, and they went in, and it's virtual slavery, basically. They're not paying the people anything. I remember hearing people were working for $1 a week, and they
for
give
them $1 is a lot more.
Oh yeah,
for
and they give them
time.
uniforms, you know, that they can wear, the workers, and their place to sleep. Food, they feed them during the day, and they can feed their family for their $1. Yeah, so it wouldn't have taken a lot. Like all those call centers that are in India, that are in the Philippines, and these places that Americans are always upset about having to deal with. They could have been in Africa where they speak English. You know, in East Africa, they speak good English. They're very intelligent people. So But I do have to tell this one story. So I'm at the airport leaving Uganda, and it was like flights leave at midnight. My flight left at midnight. We're flying back to Amsterdam. And so I'm there in the airport, and we drive up, and there's this long line. I mean, just this like 300 yards long line all the way, and it was wrapping around. So I'm standing in line patiently with their up pulls this car, and out come these Chinese people with their bags, and they go right up to the front of the line, and the African people are, just step back. So me being me, Dave, I just can't stay out of it. So I walk up to the front. I said, excuse me, you don't see all these people? Get your butts back to the end.
Yes,
I literally, and they looked at me like they'd seen a ghost. I mean, they were like, and the Africans were just looking at, who is this guy? How dare him? Hey, what nerve he has to speak to the Chinese? I said, no, you pick up those bags and you get in. So the people took the bag and went back to the back. Yeah, but the Africans are so trained and afraid.
Yeah.
They're afraid to speak up against these people. And a part of it, too, I think nowadays is that the government is so in bed with the Chinese that you're not only offending the Chinese, you're offending your government who's in bed with the Chinese.
Yeah.
But it's something, America, you listeners, that we need to be aware of. We talk about all the stuff they've done with the Biden administration, they're doing in America. We're just a drop in the bucket of what they're doing worldwide. They're taking over literal continents, South America, Africa. I don't know if India, well, I doubt India, because India knows this is our enemy. If we give in to them, we're done.
I mean, they have conflict built for them, China and India, a lot
I know.
of like territories along the Himalayas.
Sure.
So they're the only one that kind of like stands to them.
Yeah.
No.
Another thing I wanted to discuss with you, Evan, we talked about this, is your complexion. I think, if I'm not mistaken, you're a little darker than I am.
Yeah.
But you're not considered black.
No.
And so the first time this really struck me was VJ Singe.
Oh, yes, the golfer.
The golfer. VJ is darker than both of us. In fact, I think VJ actually officially meets the criteria of being black. I think.
I didn't know you had to. Oh, I didn't know there was a criteria. Oh, wow.
Well,
I did not.
it's a joke. There's not one.
Oh, okay, because I was like, wait a minute.
It's all in the mind. Okay.
There you go.
No, but I'm saying, if you're going to say someone's black,
Right.
cut away, because you're brown. I mean, you're brown, I'm brown, we're all brown. Nobody's black, really.
really.
And VJ's, but he's a
We're
lot
all
closer
shades
than we
of
are.
beige, I'll tell you.
Yeah. Some of us are more pigmentally challenged, like my brother here, Dave. He's very pigmentally challenged. He's our Julian's okay, especially in the summer. But no, but the fact that when you come to America, because you're of Indian origin, East Indian origin, you're not considered black, and whereas some light-skinned African American person, black American person, is considered black by his people and by the public.
Right.
So I went to seminary with this friend, and he was from some little town in Arkansas, and I mean, we're just talking, bigot city, racist city, if you will. But he always talks about his buddy, who is an Indian guy, who kind of ran the town, and it was just funny. But no one considered the man from East India black or inferior. He was actually a very high-standing person, and that's the first. Back then, going to Africa really, really changed and shaped a lot of my thought about race and everything. One of the things was I was in South Africa, and they have this big horse race, kind of their version of the Kentucky Derby. And I'm watching it, and they dress up in the nice dresses and the hats and all of that. You guys have that in Matt?
We do, yeah.
You do? Yeah,
It's
it's
really
an
big.
African
It's
thing.
a
isn't it?
big African thing.
Yeah. So I'm watching this thing, and this is in 1984, in the middle of apartheid. And I'm at these people's house, and all of a sudden, the runner-up couple was this black couple. And another, the man, the husband, really met the criteria of black. He was really dark. And so I'm telling his friends, it was a white family. I'm, whoa, wait. What is that? And they said, what are you talking about? That guy right there. He's at the horse race in Johannesburg, and he's black. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's blacker than black. Mm-hmm. And my friend says, oh, yeah, that's Dr. Umbutu Baba something, you know. Mm-hmm. And I said, yeah, wait a minute. I thought there was apartheid. He said, well, yeah, but he's a multimillionaire.
Yeah. What did Larry Holmes say?
Yeah, if you're black and rich, you ain't black.
That's right.
Yeah, if you're black and rich, you ain't black. He was a heavyweight champion of the world who fought in South Africa.
Yeah.
And they were criticizing him for being and boxing.
Supporting apartheid.
Right, supporting apartheid for boxing there. And so he always said. So anyway, Evan, let's move on. So you grew up there, and what has your experience in America been like?
It's been really good. It's been a lot of learning. I've enjoyed. I've met people. Like Warrior was a great place for me to like expand and like just actually meet great people. The South, I really enjoy the South compared to the North. I'm not gonna lie. I really
bingo.
The
Thanks.
South is different.
Yep.
Warm, welcoming. The food, amazing food. I'm not gonna lie. Oh my god, great food. But yeah, there's a very distinct difference from the North to the South, and I've felt homey.
What do you define as North? What's
Kind of a cold,
No, I mean are you referring to?
Well, I was in New York. I think 2
Okay.
years before I came to America, came to Oklahoma, and I felt like people were just self-centered, very individual.
Yeah, that's East Coast. That's what I say.
It's Northeast.
All right.
Yeah.
But even Chicago though is like that. I've often said this. This is great. I mean, man, you are such a refreshing breath of fresh air to me because you are saying the things that I've known to be true for 40, 50 years. When I was in college, I went to Texas Tech. Right. And I was one of the first 50 black students, one of the first 5 black football players there at Texas Tech. The first black person in my dorm, the first, you name it.
Wow.
And, but I went home. My dad was military, and so I was living in Germany. I graduated from high school there, and my parents. So we're flying back, and we got stopped in New York City or Baltimore somewhere. And we're in an airport, and there's this black guy from New York there. And one of the other kids with us was from Alabama. We had one that went to University of Alabama, one to Mississippi, Florida. We all came together. They gave us free flights over and back once a year. Yeah, the military did. So, but once you got to America, you're on your own. Mm-hmm. So we all had to fly out of there to Florida, Alabama. And so this guy says, oh, how could you go to the Southern school? How could you go to school in Alabama and Texas? I'm in Texas. And we all looked at us and said, man, we would much rather go to school down there and live down there than we would up north. Mm-hmm. So I live in Philadelphia. And what you're saying is this, and this is in my book that's coming up. It will come out, I promise everybody. But it's taken only 30 years. No, but I mentioned this, that there's no such thing as racism. And that's why I was asking you what your experience has been, considering your complexion, being treated differently from what you consider a black person. And so, but what I think it's a class thing.
It is definitely.
It's a class.
I think that too.
Yeah.
I haven't really experienced racism here. A lot of my
you and Lil Wayne. Lil Wayne said.
To be honest, like at school, all the internationals kind of help each other. Just say, hey, if you're new to America, this is what you need to do. And I've met some people. They're like, yeah, you experience racism. I'm like, maybe because I don't filter that. Yeah. Or I don't choose to filter that. I was like, I don't really see it. Or I haven't felt it. And I'm being honest. I've been here for like 7-8 years now, and I'm like, I feel like it's not that bad. It's
no, and that's what it is. Like I tell people, there's no such thing as racism. It's classism, and color is an identifier. Yeah. So normally, because black people have always been considered an inferior, the servant class, right. Worker in India, right? The caste system. The untouchables, the darkest people were the untouchables, and so it's
the lighter skinned people, or the Anglo, or those who actually were higher priesthood. you had to have it was kind of like the apartheid. It was kind of like the same thing. Like you had the separation. You couldn't eat certain food.
Right. In Africa. I'm in Uganda, and this guy was telling me about how he was proud because he married a brown one instead of a black one.
Oh, God.
No, I'm saying
It is,
and he's black. And he's black. He's an African. You know.
How carnal can you get?
Well, I agree, but what I'm saying, and for you out there, we're trying to just impress upon you that it's not a race thing. It's a mind thing, and it's this. And like I said, race is an identifier. So I like to use the totem pole example. Somebody has to be the low man on the totem pole. And that's why Hispanics don't like black people, because they want somebody to be lower than them. And then black people are upset with Hispanics because they think they're lower. They may talk about Indians, East Asians, Asian, whatever. But it's funny because every other race that comes into America fights and strives in what Booker T. Washington labeled as the American crucible. Yeah. Where you fought your way through the oppression, the hard times and everything, the Poles, the Germans, the Italians, the Puerto Ricans, Mexicans, black people. Yeah. Everyone who has succeeded has fought through that crucible. Yeah. He says without going through the crucible, you'll never be a success in America. Yeah. And he talks about all these people have fought through the crucible. And people don't judge anymore. Now, what will happen, okay, for example, if somebody's walking out and you see a black kid and he's got sagging pants, a rag on their head, they've got all these, typical ghetto mentality, dress, talk, actions, you're going to judge them differently than the black guy in the suit and the tie and driving a nice car and, working, that type of classy person. So these are all sociological things that are not so deep. You don't have to be a sociologist to figure this stuff out. But someone that speaks good American English doesn't have to be the Queen's English. It just has to be good American English versus Ebonics, and you will succeed.
But us white folks from Europe spend billions of dollars a year on tanning products. Go figure.
All right, see, there you go. You have to. We spent 30 minutes. He takes it down in 10 seconds. That is another whole subject we could talk about. I could tell you some stories about Germany. The Germans, they love to get dark. Yeah. Hey, listen, we're going to take another break real quick. Thank you, Julian, for warning me. And we will be back after this with fresh black coffee, more with Evan Ramasamy.
I'm Jeff Davis with Just a Thought. An earthquake and American security rumbled through Washington this past week as it was revealed that General Mark Milley, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, is accused of going behind the back of President Trump, having conversations with his communist Chinese counterpart, and going as far as telling him when or if the United States might plan action against communist China. Demands for answers follow what has been called Milley's Trump derangement. Is it a routine matter of the job, as General Milley claimed, or is it something more sinister? Milley's under major criticism for his woke politics, and there are those concerned that his statements and policies are weakening the U.S. military. But treason, that's a whole nother level. He's already been marginalized with the label Thoroughly Modern Milley, a takeoff from the 1967 musical starring Julie Andrews, suggesting a certain feminine image. For the good of the country, critics say he should, at the very least, be fired. What do you think? Just a thought. I'm Jeff Davis. I'm Jeff Davis with Just a Thought.
All right, we're back for our last segment of Fresh Black Coffee on this Saturday afternoon. This is Eddie Huff, your host, with my partner, David Rizigam.
Van Rissing.
I'm sorry, excuse me.
Smile when you say it.
You sure you don't want me to bow when I say it? For those that don't know, Van is a fun, and in Germany and in Europe, the old countries. Yeah. It denoted royalty. If you were a Van in Holland, Belgium, or a Von, V-O-N, in Germany, Eastern Europe, then you were from a royal class versus the peons.
Lighter skin, right?
lighter skinned European. Yeah, they were the ultra white, the white.
Yeah. And all I got was freckles.
Yeah. You could never get them to coalesce.
Yeah.
Well, no. Fortunately, if they had coalesced, you'd be they'd have kicked you out of the country. Oh, man. We're having fun on this Saturday afternoon. Oh, man. Oh, I wonder how they're doing in Washington, D.C. on this riot that they're going. Hey, I did want to talk about a couple of things. And, Evan, I'd like you to chime in on some of this. I don't know if you stay up with a lot of what's going on in America. But General Milley, we have to talk about General Milley. That's one thing we have to talk about. Oh, let me make a quick plug. By the way, for those of you that don't know, there's a new conservative talk station in Tulsa.
Yeah.
It's The Patriot, 1300 AM, horrible signal, but hopefully they'll spend some money and boost the signal. But guess what? Glenn Beck is back in town. Glenn Beck is back on the air. So Glenn's on. They've got a bunch of other people. What they don't have is good local. The closest thing they have is a guy out of Oklahoma City doing Tulsa radio.
All right.
And he tries, but he can't, you'd be like me. It's funny because back when I was on KFAQ, I tried to talk to Pat and some of the people about simulcasting in Oklahoma City.
Yes.
But nobody would buy it. Now it's going the other way. So, hey, I tried.
But I'm glad.
I'm a prophet. But nobody, a prophet is without honor in his own town, right?
I'm sure Pat Campbell's thrilled to see Glenn Beck back on the air, too, isn't he?
Well, I don't know. I haven't asked him.
It's an inside joke.
Oh, okay. No, Pat we all liked Glenn. Glenn was good.
There at the end, Pat wasn't so much.
Well, no. Well, what did it, and here's what's funny, because everyone that will remember what really got Glenn in trouble is when he attacked the former president's wife. Remember, he called Melania a prostitute.
Oh.
He had seen she was a lesbian, not just a prostitute, a lesbian prostitute. Yeah. And interestingly, Glenn said yesterday he's going to interview President Trump next week.
Ooh.
Yeah, he's gonna do an interview. So I wonder if he's going to apologize.
Well,
that's must-hear radio right there. That's must-hear radio,
and only on 1300 AM.
Only on 1300 AM. By the way, you're welcome, 1300 The Patriot, for a plug.
We'll bill you. Take it, or you can always just have us take one of your slots. Right?
Yeah, thank you. That would work. Yeah. What we need to have a January 6th style protest outside the station.
Yes.
People with signs. We want Eddie and Dave. We want some fresh black coffee.
Yeah. By the way, there is a demonstration at the Oklahoma State Capitol noon today.
Oh,
that's kind of a satellite.
Coinciding.
Right. Yeah. I think what they're telling people is, instead of 100,000 of us going to Washington, go to your state capitol.
Yeah. Two more items, and I want Evan to chime in on some of this.
Sure.
Evan, have you been following the whole situation with Nicki Minaj?
Yes.
At your age, you have to. Are you a fan? Do you listen?
Not really.
I was going to say, what kind of Christian are you listening to? Nicki Minaj? No,
it's just it's just maybe in my high school years I've listened to a couple of her songs, but then I was like, all right, it's not.
Yeah, she's out there. Let me tell you. Listen, it's. The only reason we even bring up Nicki is because, no one is right all the time. No one's wrong all the time. Okay. So what Jesus said, one of the great parables to me, or not parable, but one of the great stories about Jesus is when the disciples came to him and said, hey, there's a guy over here preaching you, but he's not with us. Mm-hmm. And Jesus said, if they're not against us, they're for us.
Right.
They're with us. And if they're not, they're not. So this is kind of one of those things. You have to, no permanent enemies and no permanent friends.
Right.
You just have to be able to distinguish when people give them credit, when credit's due. And Nicki basically, she never told anyone not to take the vaccine. She just said, do your own research and don't be bullied. And the mistake they tried to bully her.
They tried to, real.
Yeah, they tried to bully her. How did you learn about it?
Well, I mean, I'm a millennial. Instagram was just popping with it everywhere. Mm-hmm. And not only Instagram, but also YouTube too. So it's just, I was like, oh, really? So that's actually a major thing. It's just funny how they were trying to bully her a lot. And I was like, this is, and I watched both sides just to see how it is, to get a general view on it. And I was like, they screw it real bad. they should have not done that. It's kind of like trying to poke the hornet's nest right now.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. It's just like same with Lil Wayne. They did the same with him. They tried to because the girl was trying to have him talk about the racism, and he said, "I've never experienced racism. I don't know what you're talking about." In fact, there's a story about Lil Wayne when he was 11 or 12.
He was saved by a white cop.
Yep, he shot himself in the chest, and these black cops stepped over his body looking for drugs and stuff.
Oh, God.
And this white cop said, "What's wrong with you?" and picked him up and put him in his car and took him to the hospital and saved his life.
Wow.
Yeah, and he said he didn't want any money or anything. He was like that. Oh, and the other side of that story was apparently it was the same cop who had arrested his dad.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he found later. It's the same cop who arrested his dad, saved his life. I mean, there's so many stories out there, but that's an interesting one. Nicki Minaj, who you would never expect. The other one late this week that has been big is this actress that Tucker Carlson has had on all week long. Oh, I cannot remember her name. Anyway, she's the one that came out against Harvey Weinstein and saying that he had molested her and attacked her. And then when she tried to come out with it, this whole cabal of people, the Clintons, right, Jeff Bezos, all of the big money people, all these, the studios, everything came against her to try to suppress her. And it's what's happening. They're starting to get people to wake up and realize that there's something not right here. There's something's rotten in Denmark, as they say, right? Then the other thing I wanted to discuss with you all is General Milley. Dave, what do you think about General Milley?
Oh, I think if, it had been anybody other than the deep state, the swamp, I mean, he'd be out by now. He'd be out.
If not in jail.
Yeah. Anybody who was a Trump nominee or appointee would be out. It just, look, to get people caught up, he literally felt like it was his duty to reach out to the Chinese and say, hey, don't worry, we're not going to go to war. If Trump does something nuts and goes to war, I'll call you first and let you know it's coming. That was one. And then to say, I'm putting a block to keep Trump from pressing the nuclear button. There's just some stuff that,
Yeah, I mean, just think of the idiocy of that.
Yeah,
that you're going to warn your enemy that we're coming so that you can send your nukes against us before we would send our nukes against you.
I mean, Eddie, you grew up in a military base, right?
Right.
And, amongst the military rank and file, the whole thing is, you know what? Get in line, stay in line, follow chain of command. Evidently, chain of command does not apply to the highest levels.
Well, the highest, but for example, the colonel.
Yeah.
That has just been kicked out.
Right.
Because he dared speak out
And
against.
say, I want an apology. Yeah.
Right.
Own it. That's really what he said about Afghanistan. They kicked him out.
They kicked him out because he dared to question. And yet Milley and whoever these other generals he met with, or probably the Joint Chiefs, met, and they all agreed that they would disobey Trump's orders, that they were to come to Milley instead of the president on any orders that he gave. Unbelievable. I mean, it's unbelievable stuff. And then the White House and Democrats have nerve enough to say he's a patriot. Are you kidding me? I want to call him Benedict Milley.
Yeah.
Benedict Milley.
Now, remember, patriot, they said, was code word for a white supremacist, don't you know?
So they had that design or something?
Yeah. But now, when it's one of those, now they can use the word patriot. Yeah.
Wow, I didn't even think that. That's really good.
Yeah, I picked up
you
on
ought
that.
You ought to take that clip and put the two together and put it up on YouTube or on Sooner
They're literally
Politics.
saying that Milley's a white supremacist then, if we're to follow their, dog whistles, right? Wow. Isn't that what that is? Yeah.
Hey, Evan, let me ask you a quick question. So you plan to get your master's? Are you thinking of getting your PhD too?
I actually, yes, I want to.
Are you in your last semester of your master's?
No, I just started my master's. But my plan was to always get a doctorate and my PhD. So I really want to go towards that.
So how many years will you be in school? I mean, like Julian over here, 12 is enough. 12, no, 12 is too much, isn't it, Julie? Yeah, 12 is too much. And so you've already done, what, 17?
Pretty much, yeah.
17 years or so, and you're looking at another 5, 6?
Maybe.
Because master's is usually, well, if you go year round, you can do it in like, what, 18 months or a year and a half?
Well, I'm doing my master's in 2 years.
In 2 years?
Well, if I'm adding that concentration, maybe 3.
Right.
So,
Why don't you just get a MA JD?
What is that?
I'm sorry, a BAMJ. What is it? JD MBA. That's it. It's a doctor of jurisprudence with a master of business, where you're a lawyer and you get your law degree and your master's in business.
I didn't know you could do that.
Oh, you? You say, oh, I can do that.
I can do that.
If
too.
you pay enough tuition, you get
Well,
whatever you
no,
want.
at certain schools you'd have to, like Pepperdine will take you. Has a program.
Yeah.
I think USC has a program. There's certain schools. University of Texas, I'm sure would have one. Shh, don't say. I just said the magic word, Texas. Now, how about OU? I don't know about OU, but no. Listen, I commend you. Let me ask you. Let's go back to the spiritual side. Mm-hmm. When did you come to your salvation? What is your salvation? Let's say your testimony. What is that?
Well, born and raised in a Christian family, Pentecostal. My church background is from an AG church, so that's what most Africa is mostly kind of like.
Really?
Follows. Mm-hmm.
That's interesting.
It's probably the biggest, actually, the association of churches in Africa. And back at home, we have around 400 AG churches that I know of.
Just on your little island?
Yeah.
480 churches in Broken Arrow.
It's bigger than Broken Arrow.
I was like, oh.
It's over 100 miles across, right?
Yeah. No, I'm just, people don't realize how big Africa is.
Right.
You can fit America in it 3 times. That's how big Africa is.
My island's about the size, a little bit bigger than, I don't know.
Oklahoma? New Mexico? I don't know.
It's smaller in Oklahoma. It might be 150 top to bottom, a little over 100 side to side.
That's pretty large.
Yeah,
That's
so
pretty large.
400's not bad.
Yeah, so you came to the Lord in the Pentecostal church. Now, can you remember the day you made your decision, or?
It was around 15 or 16 years old when I would say, baptized in the Holy Spirit. I would say before I got baptized in the waters, I felt.
So you actually felt you got baptized in the Holy Spirit before you got baptized in water. Wow, that's interesting.
That was one of my experience where I think there was an altar call and they were like, who wants to receive? And I was like, all right, I really want to do it. I've made my mind. And I look up to my parents because they are the one that kind of guide me into that. They were like faithful servants. I saw God working their lives. So I was like, if they can do it, I can do it too. So these were the examples that I base myself. Hey, God's real, and He always will, and is always here for me. So, and I felt that I felt the Holy Spirit that day, and I said those prayers in my heart. I was like, if you're real, just show yourself. And I felt something in me. And I was like, all right, this is not a feeling. This is not an emotion. This is different. It's a tangible thing.
It's interesting you say it because that's similar to my experience. I got saved on a Friday night, June 8th, 1973. I'll never forget the night. And it was like I went in as one person, came out as another one. But then I didn't feel I needed to be baptized because I was baptized as a baby, as a Catholic.
Yeah.
And so there were, at this job I worked at, a bunch of people, all the same age, all came to the Lord around the same time. And one of the ladies said she was getting baptized. I said, why would you get baptized again? And she said those magic words, I was born again, so I need to be baptized again. Bam! Yeah. That did it right there. I was born again, so I needed to be baptized again. And that did it. I said, hey, I'm going with. And so that's how it happened. And it's interesting because just like that step I took when I went forward to receive Christ, and I left it all at the altar. I was scared to death. I was, you don't want to be embarrassed. You're afraid. And so, but I went, and man, it changed my life. And then the baptism is weird. I was dealing with a whole bunch of stuff, kind of like mental attacks and things. And it was at a movie theater. They had rented this theater, an old theater, and had somebody preaching. And then they set up a swimming pool, one of these, pool that you do, backyard pool. But they set it up on stage.
Oh.
Yeah, and so I went up, and it's weird because I remember going under, and everything just went calm. It was actually probably like being dead. I mean, I just went under, and everything just disappeared. It was just quiet, and then I came out,
Wow.
and instead of the noise coming back, that peace and the calm stayed.
Mm-hmm.
It was really truly amazing, an amazing experience. So, well, that's so good to hear. Now, tell us more about your dad. Were they born and raised on the island as well?
Yeah. I mean,
So what generation?
I'm probably 10.
10th? Oh, really?
Wow.
So the
So-
Indians have been
Hundreds.
in Africa that long.
Well, the second largest population of Indians outside of India is Africa.
Right.
And for my country, the Indians have been there since like 1800
Wow.
or like more than that. I don't know,
Sure.
but it's the British brought them in as
The
Indian.
British, okay.
So that takes it well back.
Yeah, the British owned that East Africa back in the day.
Can I just ask, the name of the island, Mauritius, French word, right? So
No, Dutch word.
it's Dutch word, but at some point the English, the British.
So Dutch, French, and British. You know, the French and the British always had that.
Oh, yeah.
Back and forth.
Yeah.
So it was discovered by a Dutch sailor, a Dutch merchant, and he shipwrecked on our island
Oh.
and discovered it and named it after himself. He was named Maurice Van Nassau.
Oh, yes.
So named Mauritius, then he survived and he just left it on a map. But
good.
somehow, I guess, the French got on it again and started using it for like agriculture because it was
Sure.
a very fertile land. and
Beautiful
tropical island.
farmland. Yeah.
And they called it They called it Mauritius. They kept the name because it was on the map. It was
Sure.
historically kept. But also, France had the neighboring island too on the sides, which was Réunion Island, which was also
Yeah.
known as Little France
Yeah.
or Île-de-France, as they said in French.
Yeah.
So they had it for a while, but the British saw it because they have India, and
Yeah.
Africa was on the sides, and Mauritius was kind of like a port in the middle.
Yeah.
And they saw the strategicness of the island as a kind of a perfect port just to go back and forth from Africa to India, and they had resources, so this is why they wanted the island.
Yeah.
For basic
Man,
business.
it's funny how we know so little about all of that because I'm looking, you got Mauritius, Rodriguez, St. Brandon,
Uh-huh.
Tromelin.
So all these are Mauritius owned island. So
Oh,
our
really?
sea
So you-
territory is as big as Madagascar.
And then Diego Garcia, is that part of you too?
Uh-huh.
And Chagos Archipelago, that's all part of
That's
Mauritius?
all part of Mauritius.
So which, are you on the actual Mauritius island or are you guys?
I'm on the actual Mauritius island.
Yeah.
So all these other islands are inhabited or tourist attractions. Or Diego Garcia is the exception, which is a military base.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's what I've heard. I said, oh, hey, I've
Yeah.
heard of military. So it's an American base out
It's an
there, right?
American base owned by the British, but in the territory of Mauritius, which is a whole different topic to itself.
So I guess America's paying rent to Mauritius.
No, it's paying rent to the British. So to get our independence, we had to give up an island, which was this specific island, which the Americans had eyes on it for.
Those stinking Americans. And
Yeah.
Well,
British.
it was not the Americans; it was the British.
The
They
British
saw the
that worked the
potential
deal,
of this
right.
little island, and
You would think one of the bigger islands would have been a better.
right. So they moved all the people off that island, and they technically said, "Hey, this island is free; you can use it." And the Americans were like, "That's a perfect deal for us." Done. So they didn't know there was people. They were like, "Hey, if there's people, we can't take this island.
Because it's a secret.
It's a secret base, so they
Oh,
can't
interesting.
reveal anything." But they emptied the whole island in a week. Placed them on ships,
Oh,
pushed
man.
them back on the main island.
Wow, this has
Yeah.
been fun this week. This is really good
Yeah.
stuff we're getting here today.
I just want to. You said textiles is big industry there. Cotton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we don't not in the raw material, but
Yeah.
processing it.
Oh, processing. Okay.
Processing.
Because I know that Reunion Island, very tall, mountainous in that, but Reunion, just beautiful farmland, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Volcanic because of that volcanic land. So
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting because a friend of mine, he's from actually Bangladesh, and he just worked a deal from the Bengalis where they're importing now shirts because Bangladesh is big in textiles. So India, that everything East India, and I guess I didn't realize you guys are into it as well. But yeah, they're importing beautiful quality, high quality stuff coming in from.
It's cheap.
Yeah, and it's super. Yeah, that's the thing because I think they're buying shirts for like 75 cents a T-shirt or something, and they'll sell it for like $8-10. I mean, printed, colored, and then they'll print it and everything. So, which undercuts everything, but it's Nike quality. And I'm sure now what's your biggest marketplace? Where do you sell your shirts to?
We usually sell it.
Or your textiles, yeah.
Well, for our it really depends. It's mostly in the Asia and the African area. Or to an extent, sometimes the European market, because we are like a very European-centric market. We attract a lot of Europeans a lot, and a lot of our tourists are from Europe.
Yeah. Because when I was in Kenya, I went to one of the tourist resorts. But it's funny because all along around Mombasa, they have all these tourist resorts.
Yeah.
And you can tell by the country, like the French, it's like British, French, and Germans. With the level of luxury. The Germans are super picky. So theirs has got to be white glove clean. They're not spotless. It's totally clean because Germans are really germophobic. Maybe that's phobic. Maybe that's where germs come from, German. The word germ comes from Germans, but they're very germophobic. So you've got to, in fact, I was in England one time at this thing at a resort there, and the people told us that these Germans came, it was a Christian conference, and the Germans came and sued them because it wasn't clean. They wasn't clean. The British just love it, think it's great.
Yeah, it's kind of like that at home too. Like the British and French don't really matter. It's like, yeah.
Yeah, I stayed at one of the ones for the actually natives, the Kenyans and the British were at this one. It was great. It was like $10 a day, meals included. I'm right on the ocean. You can go fishing out there, and they had a swimming pool plus the ocean, scuba diving. They had floor shows and Right. But it was like $10 a day. That included everything. I was thinking, this is crazy. In fact, after one last thing before we wrap up. When I was in Uganda, and the people, they're just servants, so they would serve us. I'd wake up in the morning, they'd bring me breakfast, my dirty clothes from the day before I leave them on the floor. The ladies come pick them up, wash them, clean them. You come back, they're totally clean and pressed at night. And the food, they would bring us food and this, and I remember thinking, man, I could get used to this.
Yeah.
And that's exactly how the colonial the colonists were, that they were used to this being served. You just get used to it. It becomes nice. And not that you initially think it's an evil thing, but once you get used to it, it's hard to give it up.
It's really hard to give it up.
And so, and I'm sure, look at his smile. He's probably been a recipient of some of that service.
It's common back home to have like a servant.
Oh, so your family have servants?
We used to at some point, but we kind of it was like thieves and all that. So we had cooks, or we had someone, a cleaning lady, which is a very normal job title to have.
Oh yeah, house cleaners. Yeah.
Well, now was it another Indian person, or was it an African person?
It didn't matter.
It didn't matter. Whoever took the job, you could get.
If it was a family-related person, if it was someone in need from church, sometimes we would offer opportunities, and it was a lot of families at home in church too. They would do that.
Wow.
So it's not based on the color; it's just an opportunist and based on merit. If you're good at it, you're good at it.
Exactly, and that's the moral of today's show.
Absolutely,
that's the message. That it's not about race, people. It's about circumstance, and so we're really glad to have you with us today, Evan. Seriously, this has been. I could go on for probably. We could do another 2 hours because awesome. By the way, how hard would it be to get to Mauritius?
Traveling?
No, well, yeah, and traveling expense wise, hotels and all that. In other words, is it a trip worth looking at taking?
I would say it's worth it.
It's worth it.
If you're
it's a beautiful island.
If you're willing to travel 2 days of flight,
Okay, tell us the airports you land in. From here, you go to New York, then where?
Well, there's many routes, but the one I usually take is Tulsa, New York, France,
France.
Mauritius.
To France to Mauritius straight away.
Yeah,
Wow.
we're a tourist destination, so we have
Yeah.
airport facilities for that.
Yeah.
So
What I was going to say is, you see, when I went, you could go, like I took one from Dallas all the way to Qatar.
yeah.
Wow.
And then from Qatar, you could continue.
Oh, you could do
over.
that too. Yeah,
That's
you could
another
do,
way.
You could do from Dubai or Qatar straight to
Yeah,
Mauritius.
it's just as long. It takes the same. It's only 2 flights instead of 3 or 4. Like what direct flights to Mauritius are out of what countries? Europe.
Europe, yeah.
So you go all the way from France. Can you go from Amsterdam? Do they
I
have
think yeah, you can.
in probably Frankfurt, Munich?
Yep.
Okay.
I think he knows somebody in Paris. That's why.
I mean, because I speak French, so if I get lost or I need help, I'm
There you go.
it's easy for me to get along.
Hey everybody, this has been really a lot of fun. Evan, thank you again so much.
You're welcome. Thank you
And
so much.
everybody out there, we thank you so much for listening and watching. Those of you that are watching us on Sooner Politics or Fresh Black.Coffee.
Yeah.
Hey, God bless everybody. Have a great week. Next week, I will be in Texas for a number of reasons, but Dave and I will try to do a Zoom call.
Yeah.
Have a wonderful week. Evan Ramasamy, thank you again.
Thank you.
Have a good day.